the Six Sigma, another is the concept of design for Six Sigma. So the difference is that old ways always is focus on, you identify a problem through feedback and then you improve the process. So once you identify the problem, then people say, oh, you can apply Six Sigma to solve the problem. So like your vice chancellor said, oh, I worked on this project for Six Sigma. So project means is that companies having problems, they say we want to fix it, then you could work as a team to solve the problem. But what we have been teaching is fixing problems is not a good thing. You agree with me or not? Fixing problems is not a good thing. Why do I say that? Proactive, very good. If your whole life is spent on fighting fires, fighting crime, fighting pollution, fighting hatred that people have for each other, fighting each other with wars, right? You have a conflict with your neighbors, you can fight it out, right? So the idea is it is not a good thing. Much better is to prevent it. Much better is to prevent it. And if you are very busy solving problems, of course you will never have time to prevent it. Prevention is better than cure. Very good. So like in English language, and this is not new thing I'm teaching you, right? This is hundreds and hundreds of years old. Like in English language, they say a stitch in time saves 9 stitches in the future, right? And like we say, an ounce of prevention is worth what? You've heard an ounce of prevention is worth pound of cure. Pound is like has 16 ounces. So it says that if you don't prevent it, it will cost you a lot of time and money in the future to fix problems. So you can apply this idea simply like somebody says, oh, how did you, solve the problem of concentration of wealth or poverty or anything in India? So you have to focus on prevention so that, a lot of these bad things won't happen. And prevention means by definition is that you're going to change the system. And only a new system, a new thought process, a new paradigms, new set of assumptions, new ways of thinking will help you do that. I think now you can see this picture a little better. On first day, my slide was not very good because you can see this fountain, you see, and this mountain you can see. Yeah. So this mountain is called Mount Rainier. It is like in feet, it's 14,000 feet high. And this is a glacier. You know the difference between glacier and so glacier means that it has been frozen for thousands of years back. So this is just like in Himalayas, this sheet of ice, doesn't melt. So it is there. This whole area of Seattle, more than 15, 20 years ago, it was all frozen. And all the lakes were all frozen. And so only, recent means 10,000 years is recent. It's like start melting, and today we could live here. You know that like a couple 100,000 years back, Earth was frozen. And then the ice retreated, and then people from Africa migrated to Europe, And you can see that's what adaptation is. They were dark and then they became white, right? With time, because there was no reason to protect their skin in different ways. So here we can talk about basic introduction to Six Sigma, design of Six Sigma. And the Six Sigma, we talked about 6 steps in Six Sigma, and these steps were design, measure, analyze, improve, control, and then transfer the technology to some other place. So the word transfer means is that supposing somebody a good, say, social system in country X, then we're going to redo it ourselves. That can be very expensive. So you can take that idea, and then if you like that idea, then you can transfer it to your society or to your system. Because it's a big investment to do something new. It's very expensive to do something new. Most of you know that Google, Google is a part of a new company called Alphabet. Yes, you know that? No. So Google is bigger companies, has a lot more things than Google. And the CEO of Google is Indian. You know that? Yes. He's a graduate from IIT Kharagpur. So if you in America, many of the top companies, people say there's discrimination, but the CEO is Indian. Like Microsoft, CEO is Indian. He's from South, Satya Nadella. Google CEO is Indian. Like Adobe, CEO is an Indian. Even consumer companies like Pepsi Cola, CEO is an Indian lady, and so on. So you can see that you can have so much impact. So there are so many rich people in the United States who are alumni of IITs. And there's so much money. So just like in the United States, we have best universities are private universities, like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Yale, and so on. So some of these Indians from IIT told Indian government that we can donate enough money that we don't need government support for IITs. So there is enough money to fund them with private donation. The way private universities are started is based on the contributions of people in society. But of course our government will say what? No, right? Because why would they give up their ability to control something? So that is natural, a human instinct to do that. So most of the top universities, look at every student. Why do they treat you with respect? Because you are future donors of the university. So if Microsoft old CEO Bill Gates went to Harvard, he could give $100 million to Harvard, right? So any student is a future donor of the university. And then you can sustain the university. So like Harvard has a endowment that is $35 billion. It's not a small amount of money, right? And then even if you have income on it, say at 10%, that is $3 billion. $3 billion is more budget than all the IITs in India. So just one university have that much money to spend on. And the reason these things work is because some people at some time had a vision to start things, to do things, and then a lot of people understand the purpose of doing something, and then you, throughout your life, you make contributions to sustain the system. So Six Sigma methodology now is not as popular as it was about 25 to 30 years. It started in late 80s, and one company in particular, a Motorola, and then GE picked about Six Sigma. So GE promoted it quite a bit, and I think they did a lot of marketing and training of people how to implement, solving problems through steps of Six Sigma, a process. So many companies, even like in India, if there is a subgroup of GE, there may be people who did Six Sigma projects. And this is like repeat. So the basic idea is that you try to understand what are the needs of the customer, and you have a target. So like the first day, your vice chancellor said that quality is meeting, at some level, customers' requirement. But you can see that concept of quality, he said, in 1990s, there was a committee, and then they met and they came up with this definition. But that is 20 years ago. Good companies today don't believe in that. So one example of a good company is Apple. You know Apple? Apple is the wealthiest company in the world. The market value of Apple is $750 billion. Total India's economy is how much? You can Google it. Say anybody want to do that while I'm talking. Some of you have internet connection. So Google how much is the total net worth of Indian economy. You understand what I'm saying? You can do that in front of me. How many $1 trillion you think it is? And maybe you'll get a response, maybe you won't. So you can see one company, just if you go to Africa, there are probably 100 countries whose total output is less than what is Apple, just one company. You found some answer about India? No. Doesn't matter. You can do it at home if you don't get answer right away. So it is, see, why am I asking you these questions? Anybody? Why am I asking you these kind of simple questions? And what it is demonstrating to me, that most of you are so ignorant about India. Anytime I ask a question, people have no clue. So how could you even improve your own country if you don't know some simple metrics for your country that people in economics or sociology or political science use? Anytime you ask a question, people have no idea what is that statistic about India. So then it is very hard for you to make judgments on a day-to-day basis. Make sense? I mean, you are the cream of India, right? Yes, no? You don't look at yourself as the top in India, or no? How far better of you compared to millions and millions of other people, right? You're not even able to relate to what I'm saying. At 2.2 trillion? Yeah. So you can see that if 1/4 of India is just one company. And then we have probably, 15,000 companies. So Apple doesn't believe in that customer requirement and do market research and ask the customer what they want. They will say customers don't know what they want. So the way Apple company works is they come up with the iPhone. They never knew. People had no idea what this thing is. And they cannot ask people, oh, what did you want after 10 years? They have no idea. So their model is, we will tell you what you need, rather than you telling me what your requirements are. So I will do innovation. I will come up with new products. And then you will say, I cannot live without them. That you could not ask marketing 50 years ago and say, oh, people, do you guys need internet? Nobody will know what it is, right? So that's the idea. Today, in a lot of our old definitions of quality, they are disappearing. So Apple company says, people don't know what they want. How can they know? Because they never experienced it. If you've never experienced it, how could you know what you want? But people who have vision, they try to anticipate what will make you happy 5 years from today, 10 years from today. You cannot decide. Sometimes they are successful, sometimes they're not successful, right? So any company that is successful with innovation. So the main thing today that you have to market as a human being is knowledge. And then you can use that knowledge to innovate, not to making gadgets or widgets, but the main thing is the knowledge. And that's why we are fighting now, not over small things, but over intellectual property. So there's, so much intellectual property like in USA, and then we get very mad with China because they don't obey our, rules. But India does the same thing. They don't, I think in India, 95% of the software is pirated. They don't pay a penny to Microsoft. So you're cheating at not even at an individual level, but even at the system level. The government does that. In China, maybe several years ago, it was true that 90% of Microsoft software was pirated. They didn't pay. So in 90s, Bill Gates went to China and he said, oh, if you can promise me that you will pay me for 10%, I'll keep giving you software. 90% I'll give you free and 10% you pay. They said, no. If you can have it free, why would you want to promise you'll pay for 10? So you can see that this is blatant thievery at international level. Most of you, when you use software, where did you get it from?
Download from the website.
And you pay for it?
Most of the time you pay for it. And
Sometimes, yeah. Free. Some free version. But the question is, how do those free websites come into being and so on? You can see this issue is not for Microsoft. You know that Bollywood complains, people don't pay intellectual property and on and on. So the issue is on developing a culture in society where somebody says this is just wrong. In my university, if it was ever found out that on a university property, somebody downloaded a software that you didn't pay, that is almost like a crime. They will get after you, because that is, you cannot have employees who steal, right? That would be wrong thing to do. So that is almost like, so they will monitor everything that is there and make sure that you're not downloading something. So same thing is with Bollywood or anything else. Somebody has to figure out. So typically if most of the people steal, then how will Bollywood make money? Then what happens is the honest people, like some of you, will go to theater and you pay ticket, right? Then means your ticket price has to keep going up, because now you have to subsidize all the people who are not paying. So if 50% of you pay, you always have to say, what kind of a conscience can you have when you're stealing 50% of your neighbors, right? So you're not paying, Bollywood still has to make money, so they will have to jack up the price. So these are very, very simple things that human beings many times in developing countries don't think at all. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Bollywood can institutionalize stealing. They'll adapt their model. They say, oh, Indians don't pay on YouTube, they can watch free. So they will have to change their model. They'll say, oh, you could go to Eros and 1 month is free, but then at some time you will have to pay. So they will try to kind of get you addicted to something and then charge. So that means we are developing business models that are based on dishonesty. That is so wrong. So you are adapting to, that means you are creating a system that is based on dishonesty, right? So if you think why is in India, it is based on bribery. So we created that system simply maybe 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 1,000 years ago. And now you're sustaining the system. You can't get rid of it. So you have to think very hard, if you create anything in 100 years or 500 years, what will happen to society? And if you don't have the intellect to think, then of course you cannot solve any problem, right? All you're doing is sustaining the problem. Now you're so used to these extra benefits without paying for it. So you have to. So the old idea is you have the target, then we say there is a fuzziness about the target. Question mark means is we don't really know you wanted this or this. And then the specifications or standards are fuzzy. And then we want to improve quality. Improving quality means our ideal is to hit the target, not to hit the specification. But Six Sigma is a bad concept because it is more focused on specification. So though people, even smart companies in America, never understood this idea that specifications are barrier to improvement. Why do you think I say that? You are limiting, I'm limiting your potential. I say, no. A smart person doesn't need standards. Yeah, that's what we are teaching the student. That's many old thinking that you need standards. A smart person, we can talk about this philosophy. A smart person doesn't need standard. And if I give you some specification, you can achieve it and then you will stop. Or I can do a lot of inspection and then make things, I make 100 things, 95 are within the limits, I throw away 5 and ship you within standard. But if I ship you 95 and make 100, how many I charge you for? 9,500. Let's think again. Supposing a company makes this projector and she has required standards, and let us say standards are pretty good and they can't meet them, They say, okay, we'll make 100 things and then we'll make them, and then 95 meets the standard. Then we ship it to you. But how many I charge you for? What is my cost?
How to charge as per 100?
100. So you could even make the standards where I ship you 50 and throw away 50. I charge you 100. So this is nonsense. You have to understand the capability of the producer and the requirement of the consumer. You cannot separate the producer from the consumer. Right? If a consumer has requirements that the producer is not capable of, you'll always have conflict. So you always focus on the cost. You don't say, this is my cost. But the question is, what is the cost to whole society? What is the cost? Do you think it is in your interest to shortchange the producer? I'm sorry? Affordability? What you mean? No, that's a different concept. Very good. Yeah, we are trying to convince them that if I'm a consumer, supposing you are a vendor on the street, and I want to buy banana, and he says, oh, this is 100 rupees. Should I shortchange the vendor? I say, no, I'll get you 80 rupees. Right? If I don't pay what the real cost is, what will happen to this vendor? He'll go out of business, right? And if I shortchange the company, next year they'll go out of business. If a company is out of business, who is hurt? Whole society is hurt. Then they will lay off people. Then these people are unemployed. Now they cannot buy the bananas. Whole society is suffering. So the idea is, it is not a transaction between you and me. It has to be, even if you use the old paradigm, it is a transaction, your gain is my loss, and my loss is your gain. It is something, it is in my interest that you make decent profit so that I can sustain you. My society's job is to sustain you so that in future you will still be in business. But you don't want to cheat any company. If you do that, then everybody will suffer. If a company goes under, then your neighbors will lose their job, right? And then they will come and steal from your home. So you can see it is a bad thing. That exactly happens in many societies. You go to some country in Africa and people say, oh, there is so much robbery and so on. But people say, why is this happening? Why is it happening there in India even? It is because we have policies that is leaving these people without any support. And it is a result of policies of companies, our whole society. So anytime you do something in a global way, I think most of you will say, oh, I don't have the luxury when I buy banana to think how it affects farmer and how it affects the distributor or how it affects the person on the street who's selling bananas. But you always have to say, issue is not win-lose, but question is, what is a sustainable, fair, whatever words you want to use, more price for this transaction. So when you and I have a transaction, you have to feel happy and I have to feel happy. It can't be one way. It's not that if you cheat me as a consumer, I'll feel back tomorrow. So I must feel happy and you must feel happy. And then every society can decide what is fair transaction and how much profit is acceptable. But you don't want to cheat anybody, right? Because that will haunt you. If you believe in karma, if you cheat anybody, it will come to you. Even if it comes to you in this life, it will come after 100 years for your grandchildren. They will suffer because you cheated somebody.
But it's a vice versa as well. The company should not cheat on us.
Company shouldn't cheat. Same thing. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So same thing will happen if a company cheats a customer. You will not buy after. This whole universe, or even you look at our planet, everything is interconnected. So the notion of butterfly effect means is there was a butterfly in Brazil and it flew away and it created monsoon in India. So you say, how could that butterfly create monsoon in India? So now as a scientist, you can see everything in this world is connected. So it's like in mathematically differential equation, any small perturbation will propagate. Yeah, change. Every atom on this planet is connected, right? If one atom decided, oh, it doesn't matter, there are trillions and trillions of atoms, it will affect the planet, right? So we sometimes make up a story. So the story is about Alexander the Great. Nothing great about it. You have heard of Alexander, yeah? So which year you think his armies came to India? You know Alexander? So about 2300 years ago, so like 300 BC. And Alexander, people call great is because he conquered many countries, and he was in Iran, and then he sent his army and some generals to India. And then the one story is then when the general was in India, you know, he wasn't very successful, and Indian soldiers killed him, and then the army was demoralized, and then they told Alexander, and then he almost died in Iran, and that's the end of Alexander. So then we are engineers. So then now we do cause effect, butterfly effect. So then it's like what we call as a thought experiment. So somebody says, this general died in the battle. So somebody says, how did this general die? You see, it was very simple. The general was fighting, and then the horse slipped, and then suddenly the other enemies got the general and killed him. Then people thought, oh, let's stop this battle because we accept defeat and retreat. But then you say, why did the horse slipped? Somebody says, oh, that's very simple causation. The horseshoe fell off on the left side, and then of course the horse will say, you know the horseshoe, that metal part. So that somebody says, why did the horseshoe fell off? They say, oh, that's very simple, I'm an engineer. Then there are nails, right? Then one of the nails was defective. What the word defective is? And the nail broke, it made the whole horseshoe weak, and horseshoe fell off. So you say, oh, why did the nail was weak? They say, oh, the ironsmith who made the nails didn't heat treat the nails well. If you don't treat them, their strength isn't very high, nails brittle, then shoe will fall off. But then the question is, why did the ironsmith didn't treat this well? So you can make a big novel. So then we say, oh, maybe the night before, this ironsmith being a male, he had a fight with his wife. Now he was very unhappy, and it continued. He was not paying attention to making this nail. And just because this guy had a conflict with his wife, or his neighbor didn't say, he can make any story. His neighbor did a hello to him. He got so mad. He says, my neighbors don't love me. Now you go to work, your brain is thinking about your neighbor or your wife. You made a mistake. So just because he made a mistake, India was not taken over by Alexander. Whole future course of India got changed because one husband and I fought. Can you believe that? Yeah. So most of us don't think that way. But the idea is that any simple act, like tomorrow when you're walking, and if you don't say hello to your friend or neighbor, it consequences. It can change the future of India because you don't say hello to somebody. Or you could make it bigger. You treat another person properly. It can change the future of India. So now you can see if Alexander would have taken over India, India would be a very different country. You guys won't be doing what you're doing today, right? Maybe then Mughals won't come, and then maybe British won't come. If Alexander was that powerful, he could have started a very different processes, and the future of India would be very, very different than what it is today. So this is more like a thought experiment to improve the consciousness of people, that how simple acts that seem trivial, so trivial that we instinctively do them and don't think about them, but they have tremendous consequences.
There's an architect, please, where from architecture.
Oh,
He has this proverb,
details, sure, yeah. So you can use any metaphor to explain that, right? So it's like you could use in architecture the same idea. So somebody says, oh, this building in Old Delhi fell down and killed 20 people. Now question is, why did that happen? Of course it started with the design, that, and then how the design was executed and how the foundation was made. So if all you did was put one defective brick, it will take 100 years for the whole building to crumble. So you can see, so somebody says, oh, so what, I put a defective brick, nobody will notice it. But it killed 50 people after 100 years. Nobody will notice it, but it creates so much damage. See, if some of you are mechanical engineers, right? Most of them, yeah. So you can see, how does corrosion happen? So if you think the science behind it, I make a shaft, right? And it is never perfect, right? So like you're an engineer, so if I do surface, how perfect surface is, there'll be small pits. So where will the corrosion start? At the weakest link in the chain. So you put this shaft here, somebody was careless, they put a tiny nick in it. And 50 years from today, corrosion started at that nick. You don't think of that, right? Because you know that it is science. You start with a tiny thing, and then it takes several years to corrode, then it keeps on. So one area will corrode, a lot of other things won't corrode. So in whichever area it corrodes, that becomes weakest, and it will fail. So simple things like we talked about safety yesterday. So any simple defect in this room can kill me. How you do that? You can see, if I'm sitting here or walking, let us say this was made out of metal or something, and somebody didn't make it well, design it well, or this is sharp edge, right? And I don't know this is sharp edge. I just go by, and suddenly I get a tiny cut. Now that's where tomorrow bacteria will enter my body. And if I don't have resistance to that bacteria, I'll die. Just because somebody was careless. So if you think like millions of people in India, right, put this huge number, who are dying or who are sick or who are in hospital, how come they're doing It is all simple acts that people are doing, not because of their mistake, but because of millions of other people who created hazards in society. Somebody contaminated food somewhere, right? Somebody in the food chain, maybe something goes wrong, maybe the dishes are not washed properly, and on and on. So you never know where that trigger may be. And then people who are sick in Indian system, like you're using God is in the deal, they will just appeal to God and accept it, right? They say, oh, this is what God wanted, and I got cancer, I got sick, I cannot go to work, right? So we could throw out the blame or accept, whatever, based on that word, G or T, right? But maybe, we don't know what the real reality is, but we have enough knowledge and wisdom today to understand this causation. If you don't understand it, then it will be that God is in the detail, right? But details are done by human beings, not by God. I'm sorry, I'm picking up on your idea. But details like in architecture and design.
He said power because he
Yeah.
said details are
I understand, yeah.
precision and perfection has to be in the
Sure,
smallest detail.
definitely. Yeah. So that is one way to live, is appeal to higher authority. Yeah. Other approach is maybe there is higher authority, but you also want to accept personal responsibility. And you understand not even your own personal responsibility, but how you are affecting or impacting other people in society. So that's very, very important.
That is crucial building.
Definitely, yeah. So you want to say what impact you are having on everybody else. So if I pollute, some children will die, right? No? What you guys think? You don't think people will die because of pollution? So next week, if there's a lot of smoke, there will be certain vulnerable people in our society who have asthma or pneumonia, and you could very well, people don't understand the causation, but you could very well kill them because you want to be happy in throwing a firecracker. Your firecracker relates to your happiness, but you have no understanding how it could potentially, not that you will, but potentially kill another person, kill in my butterfly effect, how it could kill a innocent person, 80-year-old sitting somewhere who has weak lungs and could be affected by those molecules. So that's the idea. So we did all this discussion is that we said that the old idea was that you ask the customer what they want and then we give it to them, because you cannot do Six Sigma for Apple. So they are innovative and their products people don't know. So it's like the iPhone 100 years from today or 10 years from today or even 5 years from today. They cannot go to customers and say, hey, feel this iPhone, do you like it? Or what are your requirements? No, it won't work that way. So then in the old problem solving meant is that we understand the target. It says that make sure that you really know the target and you know the standards, right? Specification. Though we discounting them. So then if I knew these standards very well, our specification, LSL means lower specification limit. And this is for specification limit. So somebody says, this is my target, and then these are the specifications. So binary model is everything from here to here is good, everything here and everything here is bad, defective, or unacceptable. So this way, in this case, I could say, 40% of the things are unacceptable. So then a company product, lot of customers winning. So then you say, oh, I got feedback from the field. So now we want to improve this process. We don't want 40% defective. We want to improve this process. It says only way you can improve the process is that if you understand why this distribution is there. How come you cannot make a distribution that is within limits? And this distribution is a reflection of what? Your system, your machines, your people, right? Your management. So then you have to analyze it and figure out how to change the distribution. How to change the distribution. So like this morning somebody asked, we talked about concentration of wealth. So how can we change the distribution in India or in the United States? So only change it is that if you understand the causation. If you don't understand the causation, then it is in God's hand, right? But you have to understand the causation. Otherwise, Modi or anybody else cannot change the distribution. So that's the idea. This is the third step. Analyze it, and based on the analysis, you learn how to improve it. So that means, like one of the figures we showed you 3-4 times, you have a box, there's A, B, C, D, E. So then you change all the inputs so that your output will be closer to the target. And then one of the key ideas was to use design of experiments. It's a popular technique because design of experiment is consistent with scientific approach. All scientists do is to test the hypothesis. So my hypothesis is nothing matters. But when I do the experiment, some things do matter, right? If you are ignorant, if I go to a farmer in India and they don't understand agriculture and the science and what impact nitrogen has and phosphorus has and moisture has and water has and all the chemicals in the soils have, I'll say, did you get a good crop this year? Some years are good, some years are bad. But question is, how did you know this year will be good, that this year is bad? So you can throw it and say, I don't know. It's like as a human being, somebody says, how are you? Some days are good, some days are bad. But I'm so ignorant, I have no clue. I cannot change good days or I cannot change bad days. So that is saying, I'm so ignorant, I don't know. I have no clue what will happen. So you have good and bad days. So then if you improve the process, now we have this distribution. So you can see still you're not very good. Ultimately the objective is to make everything at the target. Not just within specification, but make everything at the target. Like we try to convince you that targets are barriers to improvement. My job is, supposing I can make everything within the specification limit. Now I have 100% good. If you have 100% good, can you improve on 100% good? No. You have achieved perfection, 100% good. So that is a barrier for improvement. Everything is not equally good, like we learned. Means that this bolt, supposing is small compared to this bolt, this will fail first before this bolt is. And if enough bolts fail, your building will fall down, our bridge will fall down, and so on. So just because things are good, doesn't mean future people won't die, our buildings won't collapse, or our products won't fail. So that is built in the design. So he said, this is not so good, we should keep on improving it. So maybe I could come here, but supposing I'm here, and maybe this is very close to 6 sigma. 6 sigma means that, you are 6 standard deviation away, and you could put in some drift, So typically they use the number 4.5 sigma. But I shouldn't stop because I've achieved 6 sigma, right? So now you can see if my job is to meet the objective of 6 sigma, I should stop because I've achieved 6 sigma. But supposing there is another country that doesn't have these limits and they continuously keep on improving quality, then after 5 years, you will be out of business. People will go and buy somebody else's product. So this is a very bad mentality. Even in America, people are not convinced that we should use it. So people still think in terms of standards. But good companies like we are saying Microsoft or Google or Apple or Facebook, they don't do that. But a lot of other companies who always struggle, like GM could do that, and GM goes through bankruptcy. Like 10 years ago, they almost closed to bankrupt.
But missions need a lot of R&D, and that means a business. So for the companies like
I think when we say we can't afford, I will say, yeah, they afford is they do other things. So when we say I cannot do something, or I'm too busy, or I don't have the money, I will say it is an excuse. Excuse, yeah. It's like I say, oh, will you call me? You say, oh, I'm pretty busy, you'll come to my home. No, this is so busy. What does busy, telling me you're busy means what? That I'm not a good priority for you. You are doing 20 other things, but I'm not in one of the 20. You're very busy for me, but you're still living, right? So philosophically, when you tell somebody, I'm busy, I cannot do something, that is very insulting. You are discounting that human being. You say in your life, that person is not important enough for you to care. And how often all of you use that word, right, including me. Oh, somebody says, oh, you didn't call me, you came to India. Oh, I was so busy, I was teaching and I didn't have time to call you. So that is, how will that person feel? All I'm telling that person is, this teaching was more important than calling you. And I ignored you, but, so I think you get the message. So saying I'm busy or we don't have the money, we have money for a lot of things, right? It's like you say, I don't have money to educate my children, but you have money to do a lot of other things. But you decide not to put money in education, right? And many families do that. Even in America, that is very common. At least people even have the money, but they don't invest in education. They don't, because they could go and take a vacation, you could eat fancy meals, you could buy fancy clothes, but you don't have money to pay tuition. That is an excuse, right? Even poor people have enough money for education, right? So you have to create a culture in your home that where it says that education is important. So once you have that mindset, money will come out. Money will come out. Your parents may not eat one meal, but money will. Money.
in India, US, like that is the main difference. India and R&D, we have kind of invested.
Yeah.
The companies who gave like the example.
Sure. Yeah. So like I think yesterday we were telling them, one of the good success stories is like education in IITs. So Nehru in 1955 didn't say, oh, India is such a poor country, we cannot start IITs and give them, so many crore rupees to start at Kharagpur and put a big building and buy the land. So it is, you decide, if you're smart, that education is the future for India. And I don't know the present detail, but most of the people still believe that IIT system is still one of few systems in India that is not corrupt. I'm sure there are probably isolated examples. Somebody got in who may be related to a prime minister, but system is very fair. It may not be 100% fair, but 99.999, it's very, system so far hasn't been corrupted. Maybe it will get corrupted very soon, but who knows. But the reason it is good is it is just very simple merit. Very simple merit. Nothing to do with your personality or height or your parents or your grandparents. So that's why you can see that there's a lot of success with that system. When you're a student, you don't feel, you look at your roommate, oh, he got in because of his uncle and somebody didn't get in. So once you, in any university, if a student starts feeling like that, it will be very bad. It will be so bad. It will morally corrupt you. And you will start thinking in a very strange way. You'll say system isn't fair. And then your whole psychology, mental attitudes will dramatically change. Do you know whether IIT is still honest? Something of...
Yeah, they are honest.
They're pretty honest, right? Pretty hopefully, yeah. So I think it is, based on, and that's why it works. There are so many universities, where a lot of strange things are done, right? Yes, no. They are done, right? But we have to admit that. So the idea is that if most of our systems can copy or imitate, it's like Six Sigma, you transfer that, what we did right with IITs, and can we do that with every other place, whether it is a private company or whether it is another university or whether it is a school and so on. And the Six Sigma motivation is it is based on the Gaussian distribution we talked about, and then Gaussian distribution has a kind of a bell curve, and then this is standard deviation, which is the square root of the variance, and then mathematically we can calculate it. So most of the things are plus and minus one standard deviation. When we say most, it is about 2/3. That is a very simple rule of thumb. Or you could, exact number is like 68.26%. Then you can go to a 2 sigma. So now you can get 95.45%. Then you can go to 3 sigma. Then you get like 99.73. So if your quality is 99.73, so that means 27 out of 10,000 items will be defective. So if your distribution is like this, so then you're making 27 out of 10,000 defective items. And that is too high. Then I can go to 4 sigma, then maybe I'll make 1 out of 10,000. Then I could go to 5 sigma, maybe 1 in, this tail decays very, very fast. So then maybe 1 in couple million may be bad, but then you can go to say 6 sigma. So now you're talking of 1 in a billion, so like 2 in a billion. So that is, you could say, is as close to perfection. But ultimately the idea is not to stop at 6, then you go to 7 and 8, 9 and 10. So you don't want a barrier to continuous improvement. You don't want a barrier to continuous improvement. So then many times these distributions shift. So then these are the numbers if there is a shift. So typically happens is that if there is 6 sigma quality and there is a 1.5 sigma shift of the process, because just like your machining, your tools are varying, right? So the process is always drifting. So you can sustain something at the target. So if you have a shift, and then in 6 sigma, this is again an arbitrary number. So then 6 sigma quality means is that the number of defects, 1.4 defects, 1 million opportunities. 1.4 defects, 1 million opportunities. So then like you can look at in India, then you could say so many processes are there where number of defects may be lot more than 1.4 million per million opportunities. So like if you travel on a airplane in India, and then maybe there are millions of baggages, right? Then how often baggages are stolen, or lost, or misplaced, right? So then you can calculate in 1 million baggages, how many baggages don't reach their destination time. So if that number is 100 in a million, then you can see you're far away from Six Sigma. So Six Sigma target was 3.4 per million opportunities. So like you have mail, billions of pieces of mail, but how often mail is not delivered. So that is a reflection of quality of the mail system. Is mail system pretty reliable now in India? No.
Yes, sir.
They don't. My generation, most of us will be afraid to put a letter in a mailbox, because if I put stamp, like this is brand new stamp, right? So somebody in the post office will take away my stamp and throw away the letter.
They have shifted from box to the registered or speed post mail.
Sure. I'm
We can
glad.
track it.
Yeah.
And they are sure that the packet they have the time, it will reach on or before that. It's pretty sure. Almost we can say that they are also somewhere using Six Sigma there.
They may be, yeah. But I have observed my sister in Gurgaon, so she sent me Rakhi, and I get after 6 months. Last year. Yeah, I know. But if you have registered, you're paying a lot of money. But the idea is, idea that even it is simple postage, it shouldn't be 6 months. Because, you're paying airmail, and how many days it takes to go to America, right? Even if it takes 3 days from post office to go to the airport, and then next day you are in America, and then 2 days, so maybe it takes 7 days or 10 days, but not 6 months, right?
Courier service is also very good. Courier services are available.
Very good, I understand, yeah. We do the same thing in USA, like with FedEx and UPS and so on. So this is done by GE, a medical system. So that's why some examples relate to the medical system. So you could say in surgery, how many times they give not the proper dosage of surgery, or like for a woman, if you do mammograms, say to screen whether somebody has a breast cancer or not. So they say typically that is only like a 2 sigma. So 2 sigma would mean is quite a few diagnoses are incorrect. Quite a few diagnoses are incorrect. So if the diagnosis is incorrect, that has tremendous consequences. If you have cancer, but they think there's no cancer, then you will suffer 5 years from today. But if you don't have cancer and they say you have cancer, and they could give you radiation, and it has a lot of consequences. You will lose your hair and on and on. So there's a tremendous cost associated with that. These are like a couple of examples of, say, 3.8 sigma, which is 99% good, to 6 sigma, which is 99.99966, 3.4 per million. So it says that if I have 3.8 sigma, then it is United States, every hour 20,000 pieces of mail will be lost. So that is not so good. But even if I have 6 sigma, because the total volume is very high, so you could lose 7 articles every hour in the country. That's still a large number, right? So that's the basic idea. So she says that drinking water is not safe. So every 15 minutes each day, you could develop how many people are there, how often people drink, and then develop some metric. So every 15 minutes, somebody is going to drink unsafe water. But here, maybe like 1 unsafe minute every 7 months, right? So he said during 7 months, there may be one small period I drink something and it is not safe. That's the idea. So it's like 3.8 sigma would be 5,000 incorrect surgical operations per week. That's highly, definitely not acceptable. But even this isn't bad. We have like 1.7 per week, which is still not so good. But many hospitals don't have 6 sigma capability. So like in an airport, when you land, you have to land on the runway. So you could be short or you could overshoot the runway. So say that you could have 2 short or long landings at a major airport each day, which isn't very good. But you could have one bad landing in 5 years. So ultimately you want not just say I'm happy with 1 in 5 years, but you want 1 in million years, right? Or whatever your ideal is. So then these were the steps. These steps you can apply it to anything, to education, to teaching your class, to your own house, to cooking, in your personal relationship, in your own professional development. It doesn't matter. Anytime you think there is a problem, hardest thing, like we did in our class, every time I ask you some issues in India, you have no clue what's the nature of the problem, right? Or how big or how small the problem is. So first step always is to define, why this problem is important. So that itself in a training program in Six Sigma can take several weeks of training, and we have hundreds of different methodologies how to define. And defining problems is the hardest thing. And that's where many times people, I'm sorry, sir? Oh, lunch is ready. This is more fun for me than lunch. I'm sorry. No, I'm just teasing. Yeah, so we can stop. Then after tomorrow we can continue. Thank you for listening. Thank you.